Dungeons and Dragons players of Reddit, what are some of the most memorable quotes and experiences to come from your sessions?
Wingardium Leviosa.
The absolute best one of my players was a warlock and he asked another player for supplies, and the other player asked him for something in exchange. The warlock jokingly offered his soul, so I encouraged him to write it on a scrap of paper and give it to the other player. What he didn't realize is that by promising his soul to another player he lost all of his warlock powers his patron gave him in exchange for his soul. The other player eventually traded it back in exchange for the warlock being required to spoon him every night gently to sleep.
Wingardium Leviosa.
One time our party was being teleported but we were over the weight limit. One member had an orphan urchin child as her servant/slave, so I just shoved him in my bag of holding. Bags of holding only have 10 minutes of air. We forgot the kid was in there for 2 or 3 sessions.
Wingardium Leviosa.
First time I gammed for my friends, they had to protect a traveling salesman named Carolus. He ended up with way more kills due to them rolling pretty bad. We dubbed him Carolus Rex. First, or maybe the second, time we played D&D, a Lotia dungeon boss surrendered. The LG Paladin, okay, we accept his surrender. Sea Monk, I try to kill him. He assaulted me. Me, DM, you assaulted him, because you felt offended by the way he talked to you. Sea Monk, he assaulted me with words. I'll kill him. Tries to attack boss, Paladin gets in his way and tanks the attack. Lasork, I attack the monk, he tried to harm a weaponless guy that surrendered to us. Me, okay. Fine. Sork attacks monk. CG Bard, I attack the monk, he attacked my friend. Me, are you fucking kidding me?
Wingardium Leviosa.
My Dragonborn, who has never met another Dragonborn, mistook another player's lizardfolk character as one of his people. Another Dragonborn. Hail, Scalar brother. Hi. I am Carsil, son of the White Dragon Silmarinth. I've never seen another Dragonborn before. Tell me about yourself. Thrak. Son of Thwack. I guess I'm a swamp dragon. Really? My breath is ice. What element do you breathe? I don't know. Breathes in Paladin's face, he crit fails con and vomits I breathe disease. Carsil was by far one of my favorite characters to roleplay. He was a fur trader who very rarely visited town and had no idea how anything worked. His intro to the group was the rogue pointing out that the merchant in town had been massively underpaying for his furs, and the party trying to track him down and get Carsil paid properly. So this guy says the merchant spends all of
Wingardium Leviosa.
his time at his manor or at the brothel. Cool? Hey Carsil, want to go ask around at the brothel? I'm not allowed in the brothel. What? Why? Apparently only certain people are allowed to be naked there. Oh. I also interrupted some form of duel in the side room and everyone was angry with me. His mother and dragon siblings were killed by a red dragon and he was badly burnt. As a result, he was terrified of fire. His position on marching order was always as far from the torch as possible, and he refused to sit anywhere near a campfire. One day he discovered cooked food when the rogue tried to get him drunk, and became obsessed. He found a cookbook of fine recipes and it might have been a wizard's spellbook for all his understanding of its terminology, and he studied it like one. We caught one of the merchant's henchmen, and everyone needed a rest, so Carsil volunteered. First watch, and grilled this guy for 4 hours on the meaning of terms in the book. You will tell me what I want to know. I ain't telling you shit. You will answer or I will freeze you slowly. Now, what is the meaning of adding 2 tibisps of sugar? What? Don't toy with me, scoundrel. What is a tibisp and where do I get one? Are you daft? Very well, where can I find a swordsman to teach me the art of finely dicing? When the group got up to change shifts, he volunteered everything he knew to get Castle away from him.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I was playing a monk, and we came across a group of low-level monsters. The specific kind escapes me, but part of their effect was a horrible smell that you had to pass a constitution check. I kept failing over and over, which caused my character to throw up. Every single round. The rest of the party handled the situation fine, but I was just this poor dude in the corner puking his guts out. Never laughed so hard in my life.
Wingardium Leviosa.
We had this evil assassin character that killed a bard in this inn. Brutal murder. Bloody as hell. He then convinces a casual bystander to go and tell the innkeeper, I took care of the music problem in room 205. Messenger guy gets taken by the city guard and the assassin just walks away scot-free. I don't know, it was hilarious the way it played out.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Haha, I love it when players are quick to come up with a reason for shitty rolls. Some amazing stuff has come out of those instances. Oh my god, I need to use that in our next session, as I am the only character of 4 who isn't obsessed with obtaining knowledge. I'm going to destroy their hopes and dreams. XDD.
Wingardium Leviosa.
So I wasn't actually in this game, but I think the story is too good to pass up. The guy who regularly DM'd our games had been planning this scenario/adventure/whatever for a while and was obviously excited about it. He was particularly excited about a certain evil wizard who was going to show up and kick everyone's ass in spectacular fashion. The group played through and eventually it's showtime. The DM gets excited and starts describing the evil wizard's entrance. Not actual quotes but close enough. DM, a shining portal opens at the far end of the chamber and the evil wizard, insert evil wizard name, steps through and stares a challenge at the brave party of adventurers. Fernie, it's your turn, what do you do? Fernie, is his portal still open? DM, well, yeah. Why? Fernie, I straight kick him in the chest back through his stupid portal. DM, okay, roll for it I guess.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Fernie, rolls nat 20. Obviously disappointed DM, you plant a mighty kick in the middle of the wizard's chest, sending him back through his own portal. The last thing you see before the portal winks shut is the surprised and angry look on the wizard's face. Fernie, did I win? DM, well, he was supposed to stop you or at least make it hard to reach the end of this dungeon, but his portal spell takes too much mana to do again anytime soon, so yeah, I guess. Fernie, seems like a pretty shitty wizard to me. DM, smoldering.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Down but not out, I had an ingenious plan that went something like this. Me, a spark in the distance isn't enough to attract attention, but a fire will send everyone running to stop it. DM, that's a lovely metaphor. Me, it's not a metaphor. I need oil. So that session ended with me starting a riot, saying I'll fix the problem, then setting the place on fire to force the guard to act. It was a great day. One more because it's less of a quote and more of an experience. So my half-orc barbarian has recently escaped prison by starting a riot. This riot happened at the worst time because apparently some vampires attacked the city, so the guard was spread thin. Once I got back to my team, we learned we needed to find the mayor, who was believed to be in the Capitol building, which was also the prison. The prison I started a riot at. Because I believed the prisoners would let me back in no problem, They were chanting my name because I told the guys I handed the keys to that Ram Dench freed them, so I told the guard captain that I'd be happy to quell the riot. He agreed, as he couldn't sacrifice manpower to stop the riot and I was an orc of my word. When we got there, however, no one actually knew who Ram Dench really was. One NPC had the audacity to claim that I wasn't Dench. So,
Wingardium Leviosa.
I had a campaign group freshman year of college. We met on Sunday nights and we were typically really tired and sort of loopy whenever we got together. Almost too many funny things happened to mention, but here are two of my favorite quotes. Friend, my character is named Sawzor the Flesh Ripper. DM, okay, class. Friend, Bard. Friend, can I roll to punt the child? DM, sure. Friend, I got a nat 20. DM, you punt him and he fucking explodes.
Wingardium Leviosa.
The gunslinger finds a circle that animates everything that is put in it. The gunslinger tries to stab it and then has to fight his knife. The barbarian throws a chair in it and gets grappled by a chair. The alchemist lights a grenade. And that is how my party burnt down an orphanage they were hired to clear of animate toys.
Wingardium Leviosa.
If your dungeon is a cave and it's sloped downward, then a barbarian can use their shield to sled down. We may have triggered a lot of traps, but it was worth it.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I have only ever played one barbarian, and he was my favorite character concept. He was utterly convinced that he was a wizard. He prepared his spellbook every morning, a piece of stone with scratches that resembled writing, thoughtfully. His most consistently useful spells were Knock, uses his axe to break down a door, magic missile, throwing a rock at someone, mage armor, his natural DR sending, screaming something really loudly, invisibility, intimidating people into ignoring him. He never once considered that he wasn't the embodiment of magic, and he on several occasions murdered people that challenged his assumption.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Well, while you two argue morality, I'm gonna go dispose of this body in the usual spot.
Wingardium Leviosa.
The wizard casts Create Undead on enemy brute. This will hold the loot nicely. Paladin interjects, you can't do that, it's against my religion. Wizard puts backpack on freshly made zombie, it's just a pack mule. Paladin draws sword, it does not look like a pack animal. Wizard starts stuffing pack with ill-gotten gains, you are correct. This is a corpse. If you like, I could make it look like a pack animal. That would be desecrating a corpse. This is also against the tenets of my faith. Wizard stands back to inspect his handiwork, not my faith. Paladin cleaves zombie with greatsword. Even so, creating walking corpses will not help us make any friends. Wizard casts floating disc and places pack on top. On the contrary, when my mother said to go out and make some friends, I would go to the cemetery. Paladin groans, remind me, why did I join this mockery of a team? Not to
Wingardium Leviosa.
carry the loot, that's for damn sure.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I search the bodies. There's nothing there. Cool, I take out my knife and start removing small extremities. What? Like what? Dicks. I cut off their dicks. Where the hell are you going to put them? They'll rot. I got a jar. Thus born, Dickles.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Why didn't you carry any health potions? They cause autism?
Wingardium Leviosa.
We had a half-orc with technical engineering type skills who had, in-game, basically invented a type of grenade, called a grenado. He was lobbing the crap out them all through the campaign because they were small, deadly effective and handy in a fight. Until at one point, the trusting Dam asks, wait, How many Grenados do you have left, exactly? And we got the epic answer, I don't know. It just says Grenados.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I was playing an Eladrin druid in a campaign run by my sister, and we had just met with a beholder who was hiding beneath the city in an old abandoned sewer system, and it was taunting each and every one of us. Then it exclaimed that we could each ask it a question. The fighter asked about his missing parents, and the barbarian asked about the lady who had cursed him. Then the beholder turned to me, taunting and sneering, asking if I was going to ask something about my backstory since it was all-knowing. Instead I looked it in the eye and asked a simple question. Do you bleed? And that's how we fought, killed, and some of us died to a beholder. However, the reactions of my fellow players and DM made it all worth it.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I let my players fight each other in gladiatorial combat. They both agreed to not actually kill each other, by declaring non-lethal attacks. It ended with the half-orc getting knocked 0, surviving with relentless endurance and then executing the other player and claimed his head.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Our party had successfully infiltrated Elitid's lair. We made our way through death traps, monsters, and finally get to the big bad's door. Before we knock we start prepping, and my character and another's warrior in the party start having a philosophical debate as to whether or not we should kill the Elitid. I forget the details, but after about 10 minutes of IRL debating and everyone arguing, the door opens and the Elitid comes out and tries to interrupt us, but we tell him we're not ready for him, slammed the door in his face and continue arguing until he came out and attacked us so the GM could have some peace.
Wingardium Leviosa.
The army, and it fostered my lifelong love of rolling dice. Distractedly told me that your abilities don't change, only your movement types and your armor class. So my Minotaur had the same physical stats and unarmed attack rolls, right? Sure thing, he said. Cool. My turn came around and I launched my tiny fluffy self at the nearest bad guy. It was a flat-out slaughter. I had an 1888 strength because dice loved me then, and I guess they felt sorry for failing my saved versus polymorph because I could not roll anything but hits the rest of combat. The fight dissolved into a bunch of beaten-up party members laughing hysterically while the monsters were destroyed by an increasingly bloody bun. Even the game master was laughing. It was the moment when I realized the adults weren't as serious as I thought and that a little silliness was not only allowed but encouraged. The group kept playing through different games and campaigns until I left for. I was playing a big meaty Minotaur way back in 2E. The group was my aunt, my uncle and their friends who had made space in their serious adult group for me and my sister. We were stoked to be taken seriously and dedicated to being serious players. Then my monk was baleful polymorphed into a bunny. A bunny? The adults were nicer than they had responsibility to be because we knew we were trying to not be little kids about things, and I tried not to sulk while my tank hopped futilely around. That's when it happened. I was looking at the book reading the details of the spell and I realized that in that edition you gained physical movement abilities in armor class, but it was a little fuzzy about your actual stats changing. I asked the game master what would have happened if I turned into a dragon, if I would have gotten that massive strength bonus. He was juggling combat and
Wingardium Leviosa.
me, I want to play a drow. Master, you have 3 elves in your company. Me, I'll wear a mask, a cape and make a good story. Master, okay. 2 sessions later. You find strange books in the Necromancer's Crypt. They are written in some dark language only evil creatures can understand. What do you do? Me, I read them. Party facepalm.
Wingardium Leviosa.
We convinced the town guard that these are not the druids you are looking for. My pal freaked out over the vague Star Wars reference, got excited and spilt an entire red wine decanter over our table and handbooks. At our next session, he bought us all new add-on handbooks, 2 bottles of wine and tippy-style cups. We continued to drink from those cups for months. Why play fourth when you can run co-TB?
Wingardium Leviosa.
One of the easiest ones I can think of is a friend's character always saying "I eat it" after the DM would describe something. Usually just the extra little detail things when describing a scene or something we had just found. I think the one that really stood out was after fighting some infected-looking animals, the DM described pucing growths on the animal's skin. He immediately shouted "I eat it." And the DM even gave him the "Are you sure?" And he went for it without hesitation. That one joke started us on a path to hunting down a necromancer who had been infecting locals and nearby wildlife with a magical disease. All because our cleric decided to eat animal pus.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I was playing a low IQ character that loved ships. We roll up to a dock and the guard asked what our business was in the port. I look over to one of my traveling companions for a good response. He whispers to me "supplies." In my excitement, seeing as I have just commandeered my first real ship, I yell "surprise."
Wingardium Leviosa.
At some point our paladin saved the life of a homeless man who then asked to be his squire. The paladin's response was to ask him his name. "Shingles, my lord," was the reply he got. That's disgusting. From henceforth, you shall be known as Craig, or Craigery for long. He then proceeded to abuse Craigery like only a foppish noble can. "Craigery, lay in the puddle so the lady doesn't ruin her dancing shoes. Craigery, hold this shield and stand on the pressure plate. Craigery, this displeases me. Strike yourself."
Wingardium Leviosa.
Sneaking around again. Because he can run the fastest when he gets caught, discussing the stealthy approach. What wizard is a pimp? No idea where this one came from. Before the long rest ends and before I become a giant spider, #just druid things. We need to stop thinking about how to open the lock and start thinking about removing the wall, problem solving with the barbarian. Do I have advantage because I'm gay? Gay wizard versus succubus charm magic. My ghost is currently doing kung fu on those cultists. Warlocks do things like that. Well, I'm worried that wait a second, I'm not worried about anything, remembering your character is an idiot. Listen, I may hate you, but I'm nice, the honest paladin trying to reign in a CN barbarian. Come on, shit already, not D&D, but a saying from our very tired raid group in D2. Everyone runs away from the pudding, black puddings are fun to fight. Come on. Daylight's burning and so is the laboratory, overheard at the table that was trying to do a small-time robbery. Why is the little guy? I see you are admiring our tapestry, it depicts Frogger, the one true god, Frog King. Roll for cramps, at a gelatinous cube currently eating a gnome, that then proceeded to dash at us. Giants are a renewable industry, a 19int barbarian after learning the cycle of giants attacking people and people attacking giants. He ain't got any joint juice, our druid, after destroying all the water in a zombie's body, making it stiff. I am doing something about it, I'm avoiding it, our wizard, cowering behind a wall. What's that sack made of? My half-orc your mother, the rogue about the sack made of orc skin. Talk any more and I'll make you a codpiece, a gnome threatening a talking skull. Do I have my corpse? DM, looking for the appropriate miniature. We don't have to respect the dead, they certainly don't respect us, overheard at the Curse of Strahd table.
Wingardium Leviosa.
So early in the session my friend buys a spell that turns stone into gold. We all said he wasted money but continued on. Later we were stuck in a room with this giant monster made of rock, forgot what it's called, anyway he had the bright idea to turn it into gold. The DM at first confused said okay, but you had to roll a 20. And he did. After the dungeon, let's just say we bought quite a lot of stuff.
Wingardium Leviosa.
In a post-apocalyptic land with a deadly plague, one of the players was naturally immune to the plague. When a group of holy warriors dedicated to seeking this chosen one found the group, the bard chimed in and convinced them that he was the chosen one. He is not. Next week they find out not only has he doomed civilization, but the holy warriors will try to ritually sacrifice him.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Very similar. Our DM infested the planet with these beings of power, which were all sorts of weird shapes. One was, for want of a better description, a massive diamond embedded in stone, which could communicate telepathically. We were sticklers for politeness, so our first conversation with it went something like, "What's your name?" Not important. That thing became known as not important. You just got used to it, after a while.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I've only played a few times and I'm not super into it. I'm not super comfortable with the whole RP thing. To ease the tension, I made my character flamboyantly gay. When I eventually died, the GM asked if I had any dying words. I screamed in my gayest voice, "This is a hate crime." We still laugh about it, lol.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Similar to D&D, I ran a campaign for Vampire the Masquerade. The party was fighting an enemy in a reception hall, and one of the members got flung into the kitchen. He responded by tearing the stove out of the wall and throwing it at the villain. Did you preheat?
Wingardium Leviosa.
Allow me to regale you with the exploit known as tossing up the halfling. My father told me his old D&D stories at bedtime. One of my favorites has to do with his half-orc cleric grabbing the halfling by the scruff and throwing them into the air. Being an acrobatic rouge, the halfling could land several shots with a crossbow while the rest of the party hid behind a wall for cover. Much to the annoyance of the halfling.
Wingardium Leviosa.
There's a particular type of player that every dungeon master encounters at some point. He's a loud, talkative individual, and his constant attempts at jokes are made all the more annoying by his subtle, but still evident, social awkwardness. This fellow will always play as either a rogue or a sorcerer, usually with a focus on employing his charisma, and whenever possible, he'll do his best to make the story center on him and his exploits. His sexual exploits, that is. For a brief period in college, I was the dungeon master for a group that included that player. The campaign was one of my own devising, having to do with a world-ending cataclysm that some other band of adventurers, non-player characters, was intent on stopping. My group's party, on the other hand, had taken it upon themselves to raid the sprawling fortress where the aforementioned apocalypse had first been.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Pleased to find a rogue attached to their idol, and they responded appropriately. The fellow didn't actually die, but he did spend the rest of the campaign with one fewer appendage. Since he'd also made it very clear to everyone that the body part in question was the source of his skills, he wound up impotent. And in more ways than one. TLDR, sexy statue solicits severe suffering. Her sewer system. That player would interrupt. She digs me. I can tell. You get the idea. This went on for far longer than I should have allowed, but I'd been planning to punish the guy at the campaign's midpoint. When the party finally found their way to the artifact, they discovered that it wasn't an item or a weapon, it was a living statue of a young woman. Needless to say, that player immediately tried to bed the sculpture. And this time, against all odds, she, or it, I suppose, was receptive to his advances. Of course, I made it look like the fellow had just beaten out my dice rolls, but he didn't really care, all that mattered to him was that he'd gotten some. As he discovered a moment or two later, though, he'd also gotten stuck. It was about then that reinforcements arrived, intent on protecting their monumentally powerful artifact from theft. They weren't too prophesied, convinced as they were that a monumentally powerful artifact had been hidden in the catacombs beneath it. I may be a bit biased, but I personally thought that it was a pretty good setting. Although it might have been a bit better if that player hadn't tried to seduce every female he encountered. See, the fortress in question was the size of a small city, and it had a number of factions dwelling within it. Some of those sects were only too happy to offer aid and assistance, while others viewed the player characters for what they were. They were a group of greedy marauders. Basically, every single time someone started interacting with a woman, though, the fellow in question would interject with his allegedly comedic attempts at charm. That area is closed to outsiders, a female NPC might say, but if you can get into the sewer system, you might. I'd like to get into
Wingardium Leviosa.
Seen enough hentai to know where this is going. It fails. Apparently the hentai option didn't work. This is a polite society dungeon. After doing 2,107 points of damage with a well-timed combo of Thunder Wave and Reverse Gravity, I think we just managed to create a reverse rail gun. Edit, maybe it was 1,207 and I made a typo when I originally posted about it. Either way, the DM came up with a huge number and we were shocked. Said many times, don't give the DM ideas. Oh God. Pulls up old notes. We're not spies. We're just gathering information. The words that set off the boss fight from hell, to be fair, it was in character. I'm almost level 12. Don't say that in front of the DM. You're almost level dead. Diplomacy. That's something we do with sticks, right? Excuse me. But rubs of love. My character has a spiny backside. It works. Kevin's mage is now the master of the 9th level of hell. And no one is surprised. I cast driving while texting on my cell phone. Save versus abject stupidity. And then he launches magic missile. Out the wrong end. That was flaming missile. To the DM, you know, you could turn that into a critical miss. When someone gets a 1, they do magic missile out the wrong end. Oh, for the love of, you realize he's actually writing that down. I cast black tentacles from behind them.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I was running a campaign for a bunch of my friends who had never played before. After the first few sessions where they learned to stay in character and handle combat, I got them started on their real quest. The first objective was to learn about a local mob boss, who was smuggling drugs through the town's port. They decided to send their elf ranger onto the smuggler's ship, posing as a dock worker loading the boat. His disguise worked for about 5 minutes before the first mate started questioning him. Being a new player, he tried to bluff, but failed badly. The first mate began questioning the player's intelligence, and the player leaned into it hard. He decided to fake being completely incompetent, going so far as to shit his pants to prove his point. This became a running gag for the party. This gag hit its most ridiculous point while the party was staring down an undead dragon.
Wingardium Leviosa.
In a secret crypt. The elf, who has since bought a few pairs of spare pants, decided he wanted to blind the dragon with his shit. He took out a spare pair of pants, tied the legs together to form a makeshift sack, then shit into said sack. He critically failed his roll to throw the sack at the dragon, resulting in his own feces pouring onto his head. The dragon proceeded to one-shot him and nearly wiped the party. It wasn't the most serious party, but damn if we didn't have fun.
Wingardium Leviosa.
The entire group was brand new to D&D, and it was our very first session. We were traveling down a road to the next settlement and heard a loud scream coming from the woods just off the path. Our barbarian leaps into the dense brush and brings his axe down. He rolls an 18 and kills a rabbit that just got caught in a trap. I run up behind him and try to clumsily celebrate in the best way my rouge could think, and I threw my hands up in the air holding a dagger in each hand. The DM has me roll to make sure I keep my grip on the daggers. I succeed with one and roll a 1 for the second. One of my daggers flies out of my hand and lodges right in the thigh of our mage, causing him to lose a lot of movement and jimping him. We never did attempt to heal his leg because it didn't cross our minds, thinking it was a permanent negative. He hobbled through every encounter the rest of
Wingardium Leviosa.
the campaign.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I had just traded a stack of comics for the soundtrack to Batman, Mask of the Phantasm back in 1995. My friends never heard the music before, so the moment they rode over a hill and saw their objective, I turned on the title cut, which is this big, dark choral music. Everyone gets very quiet. Player 1, maybe we should go back into town. Find another quest.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Our party was adventuring to find an ancient vampire succubus queen who was luring in and eating nearby townsfolk. One of our party members was coincidentally also a vampire, and a very powerful one at that, from a great bloodline. We arrived at her castle, and all of the party was pretty much instantly seduced by her except my character, who has a very long and interesting backstory, but basically he has a curse that caused his soul to be buried in himself under the souls of those whose souls he would steal. So he wasn't affected by the attraction magic at all. Pretty quickly we realized as players that the vampire queen wanted to make babies with our vampire dude, and he was pretty handily under her spell. Apparently their baby would have been really fucking powerful. My character couldn't do much to stop this from happening. After they did the deed off camera, of course, I managed
Wingardium Leviosa.
to snap the rest of the party out of it, and we all rushed the roof where we knew they were at. A fight broke out, and it was the two vampires against the rest of the party. Long story short, our summoner's favorite summon Isidore, colloquially known as Steve, managed to get a really good hit with his mace on the vampire queen's stomach. Our DM likes to say our campaign is decidedly pro-choice because of this. And of course we killed her too, but Steve and his mace the aborter will forever live in our memory.
Wingardium Leviosa.
You hear a shuffling from behind a statue, and out of the corner of your eye see a figure dart behind it. I threateningly point my sword toward the statue and shout, "Face my fury, you scoundrel." The statue doesn't respond.
Wingardium Leviosa.
This is my favorite type of humor, honestly. Well done, GM.
Wingardium Leviosa.
No, the door is not magic. No, the door is not inherently evil. No, you can't intimidate the door.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I always found my favorite moments when a D&D session turns into an escape room session.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Even better when the party takes 8 hours to switch up their spells and come up with an elaborate plan to deal with the imagined dangers behind the door, only to finally try the door and find out that A, there is nothing in the empty broom closet behind the door, and that B, the door wasn't even locked to start with.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Our party had just liberated a fortress from a major boss around level 8 or so. This was a demon/bad guy that was obsessed with ascending to meet the deity of the sky, or something. It was a long time ago. Well, as our paladin and our warlock killed his 2 minions, me as the wizard stepped forward and said, "Hope you're happy because I'm about to flip your right side down and ascend you to hell, baby," and one-shot him with a big spell. And so the heroic protectors, the Ascenders, were born.
Wingardium Leviosa.
It's not your fault you were born that way, being an abomination to nature, my friend's aged druid to the tiefling, Think half-elf but demon, mind you, this is like 4 hours after we had a talk about when I came out of the closet, and the weird what you are doing is a sin but I still love you I got from some family.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Do a World History D&D with my World History class. Velp, we just finished World War I section and India was subjected by England still. Oddly, England-based student was following history pretty well. So they were creating the Paris Peace Conference of 1919 and India had their own thought. I told them that in order to follow through with the legislation, they would have to get approval from the other kid, England. I told him since he is subjected so that's why he needs to go through him. He was like, and I quote, "No fuck that, how do I get out of that?" I said because you just got out of World War it would be hard to win a revolution, he would have to roll 2 dice each only being 20. He did the first one 20. The whole room fell silent. Then he rolls again, it was 20 again and the class lost their minds.
Wingardium Leviosa.
We have a group that includes me playing a bard and a Goliath barbarian who is his frequent partner in assorted hijinks. While investigating a cave full of goblins a few weeks ago, I used disguise self to appear to be a goblin and he pretended to be my captive. The rest of the part was following a safe distance behind. We needed a phrase that he could yell if things went south that would hopefully both distract enemies for a moment, as well as alert our party to rush in. He came up with, "Oh God, I've pooped myself." "Oh God, I've pooped myself" has now become the party's battle cry, safe word for all situations.
Wingardium Leviosa.
I will never forget the time our GM told us to create rogues/assassins for his campaign. At the start of it, we are approached by a shadowy figure who wants to offer us a job to whack someone off. What he meant to say was either to off someone or to whack someone, but mishmashed the two phrases together. What happened next was 20 minutes of everyone trying to figure out if they made the right character for that or what kind of stats, roles are going to be needed. LOL.
Hey guys, this is the Rogue YouTuber here. I recently had a big change in my life. I had a baby daughter. Here she is. If you could do me a favor and remember to hit the subscribe button and bang the bell, I'm hoping to really create a YouTube channel that really gets people excited and brings people the best, most interesting content collated from across the internet. I'm saving up to save my little girl to Carnegie Mellon Computer Science Department. So please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.